Jesus and we understand what Christ has done for us, how it not only impacts each and every one of us, but how it also impacts the whole world in which we live and how we treat one another. Now, one of the major problems that we have in our modern technological world is one of getting rid of toxic materials. For example, what do we do with wasted radioactive material? What do we do with lead? What do we do with chemicals that are harmful? It is a big process to try to get rid of the toxic materials that we have. And we spend millions and billions of dollars doing that because they are harmful to people. And they create all kinds of health issues for individuals because of these toxic materials, because of radiation, because of acids, because of chemicals that are either in the air, in the water, or the soil that pollute and make life for mankind very, very difficult. But one of the toxic things that we do not talk a lot about is how do we get rid of this toxic element, and it's called sin. How do you get rid of it? Because you think, well, should we bottle up all the sin of the world, as it were, put it in a rocket and shoot it off to Jupiter, and then we get rid of it? How does that take care of it for us? It is a huge issue because that is a problem that we as humanity face. Even though we may not recognize it in large part, like a lot of the chemicals that we've used to be toxic in the moment, because we really didn't understand the toxicity of lead, how it could affect children, how it could affect their development like. And we shot off nuclear bombs in Nevada, underground testing, and we did testings in 8 atolls and all that in the South Pacific, and we're still trying to clean up some of these areas. But in the moment, we didn't fully understand the kind of impact it would have. So with that thought in mind today, I want to talk about what was observed in the Jewish community this past week was the Day of Atonement, or as they know, Yom Kippur. And it is about getting rid of sin. And we're going to recognize here that the way in which that was established, God was dealing with sin with the nation of Israel, that once a year they, as it were, put all the sins of the nation upon this goat and sent it outside the camp, and that was, quote, good for a year, but not good for a long time. Now, it is interesting when we look at that and we see it as a problem and something that God was trying to help them to understand and a foreshadowing of what God was going to do in the future. What I want to take a look at today is in the book of Hebrews chapter 10, and beginning in 1 through 14. And here are some of the things, and you'll have to excuse me if I kind of try to figure out how to read and see at the same time. So, here's what it tells us in Hebrews chapter 10. For the law is only a shadow of the good things that are coming. So there were good things that were coming, not the realities themselves. For this reason, it can never, by the same sacrifice, repeated endlessly, year after year, make perfect those who draw near to worship. If it could, would they not have stopped being offered? For the worshippers would have been cleansed once for all. Now, remember what we read about, that Christ died for us once. The one and the once are going to be key elements that we're looking at today. Should it not cleanse once for all, and would no longer have felt guilty for their sins? Now, these are some of the things there. And the reason I want to give this is because of the guilt and the shame that people feel, because there is a reality that we want to come to and understand that actually helps us to understand how that we can live and live life if we understand the atonement that Jesus has made for each and every one of us, and how that he indeed gets rid of sin. Now, the way the Old Testament put it for us, so they can understand, look maybe professorial here, is that in the Old Testament, in Psalms 103, it says he removes our sin as far as east is from west. And that's a long, long ways. But you know, as we are able to reach out in the galaxies and see, now it's like it's still out there. But the atonement that we're talking about that comes through Jesus is more than moving it away from us. It is doing away completely and entirely, so that we can have a life, and that life also has a purpose for us. So he says, once for all, that no longer have sacrifices and feel guilty for their sins. But those sacrifices are an annual reminder of sins. Now that's what they remind us of, an annual reminder of sins, because it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Therefore, when Christ came into the world, he said, sacrifice and offerings you do not desire, but a body you prepared for me, with burnt offerings and sin offerings you were not pleased. Then I said, here I am. It is written in the about me in the scroll. I have come to do your will, O God. First he said, sacrifices and offerings and burnt offerings and sin offerings you did not desire, nor were you pleased with them, although the law required them to be made. So we think about the different types of offerings and the things that you could give, whether turtle dove, money, all those things that were given. Then he said, here I am, I have come to do your will. He sets aside the first to establish the second. And by that will we have been made holy through the sacrifices of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. It says again, so this is what we want to look at and understand. He says, then day after day, every priest stands and performs his religious duties again and again. He offers the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. But when this priest had offered for all time one sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God. And since that time, he waits for his enemies to be made his footstools, because by, again, one sacrifice, he has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. So here we see about the sacrifice that Jesus has made for us. And so when we think about mankind and dealing with mankind's problem of sin, and how that works in our life, because it is a problem for us. And we have to recognize that God has brought us into a new covenant, a new agreement with Him. And mankind has this huge problem of sin. So what we talk about, and Jeanette and I have talked about, and we keep talking about this elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that we're all going to die. That is the elephant in the room. That's a reality. But the big element also in all of this is that we are sinners. We have sinned. What are we going to do with it? Can we sweep it under the carpet? Will it just kind of decay and go away? No, sin is toxic. It has a long shelf life, as it were. It just keeps on keeping on and doing its thing and causing people to die. And of course, we also understand that in Christ Jesus, that not only did He die once for all of us, He also lives for all of us as well. So this is a thing that we need to understand and appreciate in that regard. So it is also a problem that we have to face, is the denial of sin in the world in which we live. And reframing things, calling things that are sinful not being sinful. That does not take care of the problem.
Feeling the blues today, or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? The Worldwide Church of God is located in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto, California. We welcome everyone to attend our worship services with us every week at the times listed on your screen.